Please note that the manga panels in this video were lovingly created by the original One Piece author, Eiichiro Oda. After his defeat in Orangetown, Buggy's tattered red nose twitched as his beady eyes scanned the endless horizon. The once boisterous pirate, now reduced to a floating head, hands and feet, bobbed helplessly on a makeshift raft. The clown's heart pounded in his chest as a low, ominous rumble echoed from the depths behind him. A wave of dread washed over him as he started to feel anxious and scared. A shadow, dark and menacing, slithered beneath the surface, sending ripples of dread across the water. The water erupted in a frenzy of bubbles as a legion of ravenous man-eating piranhas surged forth and darted towards their prey. In a frenzy of desperation, Buggy paddled with all his might with the wooden raft, shaking violently with each frantic stroke. The piranhas closed in, their scarred fins slicing through the water like jagged blades, narrowing the distance between predator and prey. One Piece. Story was made by Eiichiro Oda. This audiobook covers the side story of Buggy's crew adventure Chronicles. Script writing was organized by Knight of Honor, narrated additionally by 11 Labs. The atmosphere crackled with tension as Buggy's pirate crew faced an unexpected predicament. With their steadfast captain nowhere in sight, Kabaji grimaced in pain as he pedaled furiously on his unicycle. He maneuvered through the narrow streets with Buggy's dismembered body parts discreetly hidden behind his back. Close on the acrobat's heels, Moji held Richie, as they also gave chase to the crowd. However, the beast tamer winced as Shushu, the persistent dog, nipped at his rear end with its sharp teeth. The pirate trio raced through the narrow, cobbled streets, jostling and weaving as the crowd around them grew increasingly hostile. Angry citizens, enraged by their presence, banded together with their pitchforks, determined to rid their peaceful town of the scoundrels who had destroyed it. With no sign of their captain, and the mob growing more dangerous by the second, the Buggy pirates had no choice but to flee. The chaos of their retreat was as undignified as it was desperate. They were unceremoniously driven out of Orangetown, badly beaten, their numbers scattered, and their infamous captain, who was nothing more but disjointed body parts of his former glory. The sun hung low on the horizon as Buggy, a castaway, finally made landfall with his crude raft. His small beaten body ached from days at sea, however. The allure of the mysterious island before him filled him with an inexplicable excitement that momentarily eclipsed his exhaustion. The clown's eyes swept across the landscape, taking in the vibrant hues of the tropical foliage. It was a place full of unknown wonders, and the clown, despite his weariness, felt a spark of curiosity ignite within him. As he scanned the area, something caught his eye. A small yellow chick, roughly the same size as him, scurrying along the edge of the shore. With a mischievous grin spreading across his weathered face, Buggy's mind quickly diverted to thoughts of food. Days at sea had left him famished, and the sight of the little creature awakened his hunger with a vengeance. Reaching into his tattered clothes, he pulled out a knife and fork. Hunger had a way of turning even the strangest of ideas into possibilities. With his tongue poking out, he set off in pursuit of the chick in anticipation of the idea. He could already picture the scene in his head. A crackling bonfire on the beach, and the savory aroma of roasted chicken filling the air as he devoured his meaty prize. But, little did Buggy know, he was not alone. Hidden amidst the foliage, another yellow chick watched in silence, tracking his every movement. As the captain crept closer to the small chick, ready to pounce, his sinister grin was abruptly replaced by a look of sheer terror. Just as he reached out to snatch the unsuspecting creature, a shadow loomed over him. His heart suddenly sank. Standing before him was a massive white bird, towering over the shore like a guardian angel. Its wings were spread wide, casting a protective barrier around the two chicks that now huddled close to its feet. The bird's features were as white as snow, save for a deep, jagged scar that ran beneath its beak. This was no ordinary bird. It was a fierce protector, and the predator's role had suddenly reversed. The bird, without breaking eye contact, lowered its head slightly, and, to the clown's utter horror, reached for a massive knife and fork under its wing. Buggy's own cutlery slipped from his trembling fingers, clattering uselessly to the ground. The realization hit him like a ton of bricks. He was not the hunter in this scenario. Instead, he was the hunted. Panic surged through Buggy's veins, and all thoughts of dinner vanished. He turned on his heel and bolted into the dense forest. Finally, the captain ducked behind a thick tree, pressing his back against the rough bark. He panted heavily, trying to calm his racing heart. But as the initial terror began to fade, a different emotion crept in: glee. A wicked, mischievous gleam returned to Buggy's eyes as he caught his breath. If this bird thought it could turn the tables on the great Buggy the Clown, it had another thing coming. He quickly went to work and dug his hands into the earth. With practiced ease, he constructed a crude pitfall, a hole barely wide enough for the enormous bird, but just deep enough to trap it. He covered the pit with fallen leaves and twigs, rearranging it so it looked seamlessly with the shore. Buggy's mind raced with thoughts of revenge. His blood pumped with excitement at the prospect of outsmarting his would-be predator. As he heard the soft rustle of feathers in the distance, the clown's eyes sparkled with anticipation. He could barely contain a silent giggle as the bird's towering silhouette appeared through the trees, heading straight toward his trap. The enormous bird, now much closer, moved with an eerie grace. Just as the creature neared the snare, it paused. Its keen eyes scanned the ground, its head tilting slightly as if sensing something amiss. With a swift motion, it brushed aside the camouflage debris, revealing the pitfall with a disdainful cluck, much to the clown's awareness. From a nearby wooden table, two small yellow chicks observed the scene with innocent curiosity. With pristine white feathers, an enormous, majestic bird wielded a knife and fork, as Buggy found himself captured by the avian creature. With a sudden, graceful swoop, it clamped its powerful beak around Buggy and swallowed him whole. Just as the chicks let out a delighted chorus of chirps, the avian creature paused itself. After a moment of contemplation, it expelled Buggy with an almost comical force. Buggy shot through the air like a human cannonball, his orange cape flapping wildly in the wind. The sheer panic of being launched into the sky made his eyes widen in terror. He tumbled end over end, desperately trying to steady himself as he flew into the horizon. The bird, meanwhile, dismissed Buggy with a disdainful cluck, apparently unimpressed by the taste of the pirate. Buggy's flight through the sky ended abruptly, as he landed head-first in a thunderous crash that shattered the tranquil ambiance of the forest. The impact sent a shockwave through the trees, the attention of the wilderness's unique inhabitants. In the stillness that followed, the forest began to stir. From all corners emerged a bizarre assortment of creatures, each one a curious hybrid of various forms and features. Their eyes, wide with curiosity, fixed upon the fallen figure of Buggy the Clown, who lay sprawled amidst the debris of his crash landing. Among the odd assembly, a figure stood in the shadows. Resting inside a treasure chest, his vibrant green afro stood in stark contrast to the surrounding forest. As Buggy struggled to regain his footing, Gaimon wasted no time and reached for his pistol. The moment was electric, and Buggy's survival instincts kicked in. With a desperate move, the clown detached his hand and sent it lurching towards Gaimon's unruly green afro. The hand's unexpected grasp gave Buggy the edge he needed to gain his momentum. Caught off guard by the sudden assault, Gaimon fired his pistol with a determined scowl. Each bullet tore through Buggy's cape as he darted away, showcasing an unexpected agility despite his short stature. His legs carried him swiftly through the labyrinth of trees, weaving expertly to avoid the line of fire. As darkness settled over the island, Buggy and Gaimon's frantic struggle gave way to an unexpected camaraderie. The chaos of their earlier confrontation slowly transformed into a shared understanding as they took refuge amidst the vibrancy of curious creatures. With the tension of their earlier encounter melting away, Buggy and Gaimon discovered an abundance of exotic fruits scattered across the island and filled their cups with handcrafted liquor. As they raised their glasses in a clinking toast, the shared celebration marked a new chapter in their unlikely friendship. The following morning dawned with the relentless crash of waves against the rocky shore. Both Buggy and Gaimon stood side by side on the sandy beach. With the raft finally complete, the clown felt a mix of anticipation swirling within him. It was time to set sail once more, and though he was eager for the adventures ahead, leaving behind this island and his unexpected friend tugged at his heart. With a deep breath, Buggy placed his raft into the sea as Gaimon and his cherished creatures gathered along the coast. As the captain pushed off from the beach, he turned to face his newfound friend. With a heartfelt shout, he paddled away into the vast expanse of the ocean, with tears streaming down his face. The farewell was bittersweet, but the cheers and encouragement from his newfound friend bolstered his spirits to look straight ahead and press on, despite moving into the unknown waters. The salty spray of the sea misted over Buggy's weather-beaten face as he clung to the wooden raft. As the raft bobbed over the cresting waves, Buggy's thoughts swirled with memories of Gaimon and the strange, comforting companionship they'd shared. Suddenly, a dark shadow loomed beneath the surface, and before Buggy could fully process the threat, a massive red crab surged from the depths of the sea. Its claws, as large as ship's sails, snapped menacingly as it clamped down on the raft. The wooden planks groaned under the pressure, splintering with each crushing bite. With a surge of adrenaline, Buggy launched himself into the air, narrowly avoiding the crab's crushing claws. He watched in horror as the raft, now reduced to a tattered wreck, was devoured by the creature's relentless assault. Before the clown could react further, a mysterious female figure swooped in, catching him mid-air with effortless grace. He looked up to see a woman standing on the deck of her ship, her sails fluttering with hearts as they danced in the breeze. She had a striking presence, with a captivating purple coat that overlapped her white bikini top. With a swift movement, she drew a pistol and aimed directly at the crab. A sharp crack echoed over the water as she fired a shot that sent the creature scuttling away into the distance. Wearing her white cowboy hat, the mysterious woman smiled at him with a sense of amusement, taking in Buggy's small and frail appearance. Without a word, the beautiful woman reached into her coat and produced a weathered poster. With a flick of her wrist, she unfurled it and thrust it toward Buggy. His heart skipped a beat as he saw the image displayed upon it. "Search for," the poster read, accompanied by a colorful drawing of a familiar face Buggy had seen before. The figure wore a crimson vest with a scar etched beneath his left eye, and on top of it all, he was crowned by a weathered straw hat. The clown's breath caught in his throat as he stared at the hand-drawn poster. The objective was clear. Find Monkey D. Luffy. Sometime later on the deck of her ship, the poster of Luffy was hung on the wooden mast. As the poster fluttered gently in the breeze, the clown and the mysterious woman settled into their seats at a nearby table. He eagerly reached for a piece of toasted red carp, savoring the crispy texture with each bite, while the woman, on the other hand, watched him with a knowing smile. With a clink of their bottles, they toasted to their newfound alliance. The atmosphere buzzed with the promise of adventure and conquest as they raised their drinks in unison, sealing their pact to hunt down the Straw Hat Pirate. Far away on an unknown island, the Buggy pirates were oblivious to their captain's survival. Convinced that their captain had met his end, they had prepared a solemn memorial to honor him. At the center of the tribute, a single sunflower was placed next to his portrait. Incense smoke curled into the air, while a tied bundle of Buggy's scattered body parts rested next to it. Kabaji, Moji, and Richie, devastated by their loss, couldn't bring themselves to look directly at the memorial. Their hearts were heavy with grief, unable to fully comprehend a future without their captain. The rest of the crew, equally disheartened, wept openly as they gathered around the memorial. Their tears fell like rain and it couldn't stop. The portrait of Buggy, painted with all the flair and flamboyance that defined him, stood tall, capturing the glory of a man they believed they had lost forever. "May you remain in our hearts forever, Captain." As the tears dried and the incense smoke faded into the sky, the crew knew that life would go on, even if their hearts weren't ready for it. The Buggy pirates, now leaderless, found themselves at a crossroads, and a sense of uncertainty loomed over them. The time for mourning had ended, and with it, the pressing question of who would lead them forward came to the forefront. The once unified crew now faced an internal struggle, as Moji and Kabaji, each desperate to fill the void left by Buggy, stepped forward to prove their worth. The beast tamer cracked his whip, the sharp snap cutting through the tense silence, while Kabaji, on the other hand, narrowed his eyes with deadly focus as he adjusted his blades. The two men now faced each other as rivals and erupted in a fierce battle. The crew watched intently as the beast tamer wielded his whip with deadly precision. Opposite him, Kabaji, the acrobat, showcased his lethal prowess, flipping and spinning through the air with a grace that belied the danger of his strikes. With each exchange, the fate of the Buggy pirates hung in the balance. The crew, though still mourning, couldn't tear their eyes away from the duel, knowing that the outcome would determine their future. Would it be Moji, with his bond to his loyal beast Richie, or Kabaji, with his unmatched agility and cunning, who would rise as their new captain? As the sun dipped below the horizon, the intensity of the battle between Moji and Kabaji showed no sign of stopping. The clash of their skills illuminated the night with each fierce strike and counterattack. Hours passed, and the duel dragged on for 12 relentless hours. Driven by their sheer willpower, it seems like both combatants were completely exhausted. Around them, the Buggy pirates had long succumbed to the embrace of sleep. Richie, in particular, drifted off into a vivid slumber. In his dreams, he was no longer a loyal beast tamer's companion, but a grand captain commanding respect and admiration from the crew. The fleeting vision of himself as the new leader was like a fleeting ember in the dark, momentarily casting a warm glow of comfort amidst the overwhelming shadows of uncertainty. In his dream, Richie stood as a valiant captain, a sword gleaming in his paw as he prepared to slay a fearsome dragon in the open sea. The thrill of his imagined glory gave him a sense of purpose and power. Unbeknownst to him, this dreamlike fervor had taken hold of his slumbering form. The lion, caught in the throes of his fantasy, rose to his feet and started to move on his own. As if driven by an unseen force, Richie sleepwalked toward the exhausted fighters. With a surprising surge of strength, he delivered a single mighty blow to both Moji and Kabaji, knocking them out cold. Richie, still under the enchantment of his dream, remained blissfully unaware of his unintended intervention. As the first light dawn swept over the horizon, the Buggy pirates began to stir. Moji and Kabaji lay sprawled on the ground, still unconscious from the unexpected blow. The crew gathered around trying to piece together what has happened. Amid the confusion, Richie the lion stood at the center of it all, his chest puffed out in pride, though still bewildered by the events of his dream. One by one, the pirate's eyes turned to the lion, which seemed to embody the very spirit of leader. Strong, fearless, and most importantly victorious. Whispers of his incredible feat spread quickly, and soon the entire crew was cheering for their new hero. Before long, the decision was unanimous. The lion was declared as the new captain of the Richie pirates. In honor of his sudden rise to power, the crew crafted a new Jolly Roger, emblazoned with Richie's magnificent red mane. The creature basked in adoration, though he couldn't understand why he had suddenly become the center of attention. For now it didn't matter. He was the captain, and his adventure had only just begun. As the sun started to drift in the sky, Richie the lion stood proudly on a small rock, adorned in his captain's coat. His newly minted crew, the Richie pirates, gathered behind him with awe and anticipation. Their gaze was fixed on a formidable sight. A pack of indigenous warriors from the Kumite tribe. The tribe's members stood firm, brandishing heavily armed artillery, sharp spears, and even tipped arrows, ready for combat. The Richie pirates faced their first major challenge under their new leader. With Richie at the helm, they prepared to confront the fierce Kumate tribe, knowing that their survival and their future depended on their ability to navigate this new and dangerous encounter. Leading his men into the fray with a brave front, Richie charged at the Kumate tribe with all the might he could muster. However, the battle quickly proved to be a brutal mismatch. The tribe's superior strength and strategy overwhelmed the inexperienced Richie pirates. Despite their fierce spirit and Richie's best efforts, the battle turned disastrous. The Kumate tribe, having secured their victory, stood tall and triumphant. The once mighty Richie pirates were now at the mercy of their conquerors. The newly formed crew, stunned and demoralized, had no choice but to surrender. With their hopes dashed and their leader vanquished, the Richie pirates were forced to accept their fate. Meanwhile, far from their current location, Buggy and his new ally navigated the treacherous waters of the ocean. The two figures stood at the edge of their vessel, scanning the coastline for any signs of life. Suddenly, Buggy's eyes widened in disbelief and joy. In the distance, docked beside a rugged island, was the grand pirate ship that Buggy had believed lost forever. Its majestic silhouette stood out against the dawn sky as the clown's Jolly Roger fluttered proudly on its mast. Buggy's heart soared with exhilaration as he recognized the ship that had once been his pride and joy. Without hesitation, Buggy and his ally set to work and charted a course towards the unknown island. As Buggy and his ally ventured further onto the island, their journey led them deeper into the rugged terrain. Cautious of his surroundings, the clown scanned the area with anticipation and nostalgia. The dense forest gradually gave way to a clearing, where the sight that greeted them took his breath away. There, sprawled on the ground in a state of unconsciousness, were Moji and Kabaji, utterly defeated. Beside the fallen figures, a solemn gravesite stood out starkly against the landscape. At its center was a portrait of Buggy the Clown, surrounded by the remnants of a memorial that spoke of deep mourning. The slim woman accompanying Buggy looked around and gazed upon the memorial with a mixture of curiosity and concern. However, the Richie pirates, now prisoners, were shoved towards a massive cauldron set over a roaring fire. Panic-stricken, they watched as the tribe's warriors, armed and vigilant, encircled the pot. The tribe's members, without a hint of remorse, tossed food and red wine into the pot, ensuring that the grim spectacle would be as satisfying as it was horrifying. The pirates shrieked in terror as the reality of their situation sank in. The once proud crew, led by their unwitting lion, were now destined to become the main course in a nightmarish feast. As the flames danced higher and the pot bubbled menacingly, the desperate cries of the Richie pirates pierced the air, mingling with the rhythmic chants of the Kumate tribe. Meanwhile, as they prepared their gruesome banquet, a few of the tribe members turned their attention to something the Richie pirates were dying to protect: Buggy's severed torso and limbs. Untying the package, the group were questionably puzzled as parts of Buggy's body parts were dispersed along the ground. Despite their dismembered state, Buggy's severed limbs and torso, now imbued with a strange and eerie life force, started to move with a mind of their own. The body parts began to wriggle and connect, forming a grotesque but formidable entity. With sudden, violent motion, Buggy's reanimated remains attacked the cannibals with reckless abandon. His dismembered arms swung wildly, and his legs kicked with surprising force, causing chaos among the stunned tribe members. The warriors, caught off guard by the animated body parts, struggled to defend themselves against the relentless assault. In the ensuing melee, the iron cauldron was tipped over and spilled all of its contents in a scalding cascade. The Kumate tribe, now disorganized and battered by Buggy's grotesque reanimation, fell to the ground, defeated and bewildered. The Richie pirates, seizing the opportunity, looked up to see their saviors with joy. From the shadows of a nearby hill, 4 figures emerged as Buggy's severed body parts quickly soared into the air. Standing beside him were Moji, Kabagi, and his new ally, all of whom had come to his aid. Together, they looked down upon the defeated tribe and gleamed in their shortcomings. With a powerful roar, Buggy led the charge and descended the hill with his companions at his side. The assault was a whirlwind of fury. The captain quickly dispersed and unleashed a torrent of chopped-out weapons, creating chaos among the Kumite tribe. Both Moji and Kabaji's kick shattered the defenses of the tribe's warriors, while the mysterious woman, armed with her pistol, provided cover with accurate and deadly shots. The fierce battle was swift and brutal, as the victor was already decided. The tribe, battered and broken, could scarcely muster a defense against the combined might of their adversaries. Unable to withstand the onslaught, the cannibals retreated and ran for cover in the deep forest. With the threat vanquished, Buggy and his crew emerged victorious and began their retreat back to their makeshift camp. Buggy, now restored to his former glory, approached the remains of his makeshift grave with a triumphant sneer. Placing his foot firmly upon the grave, he crushed it under his heel and reclaimed his leadership. The act was a defiant statement to both his enemies and his crew, a declaration that Buggy the Clown was back and stronger than ever. The Jolly Roger flew high in the air, fluttering proudly against the backdrop of the gleaming blue sky. With his loyal crew and new allies by his side, Buggy stood at the forefront, leading the Buggy Pirates into a new chapter. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and all you sorry souls who thought you'd seen the last of me, Buggy the Clown is back. Bigger, badder, and more flashier than ever. I've stomped on my own grave, and I'll stomp on anyone else who dares to stand in my way. This world is mine for the taking, and the Buggy Pirates are leading the charge. So mark my words, nothing, and I mean nothing, will stand in our way as we sail to glory and beyond.